Hi guys, welcome to The Attic. My name's Mark Jago. I'm a philosophy professor in the UK. Today we're continuing the Philosophy Glossary, trying to make sense of all those difficult concepts and bits of terminology that you get in philosophy. And today we're looking at rationalism. So rationalism can mean a bunch of slightly different things. We're basically thinking about epistemology, the study of knowledge, and rationalists take a certain view on where knowledge comes from or what justifies our knowledge. So I'm going to try and make sense of those kind of issues. That sounds good to you? Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon to get notifications. Okay, rationalism. So historically speaking, rationalists were a bunch of philosophers and scientists who kind of took mathematics as their ideal for how we gain knowledge of the world, whether that is knowledge of just everyday things or philosophical things or scientific knowledge. Okay, so this idea of taking mathematics as our kind of paradigm model for gaining knowledge, what does that look like? What does the model look like? Well, the idea is in mathematics, we start with a few central axioms which are completely certain. Okay, so we know the axioms are true because, how could they not be? We know them a priori, so prior to any experience, we just know that those axioms are true, and then we see what we can derive, infer from those axioms. Okay, in brackets, there's a whole question about whether that's the right way to think about mathematics, but that's the way that historically classic rationalists, people like Descartes, were thinking about how we gain knowledge. Okay, so we're going to have some axioms and we're going to see what we can derive from them. Okay, let me just give you one famous example of how this rationalist thinking might go. So we've got Descartes wondering whether he knows anything at all. Maybe I'm dreaming right now. Maybe I'm being deceived by an evil demon. So maybe I don't know anything. Okay, I'm having this doubt. Oh, but if I'm having this doubt, then I know that something exists because, there is a thinking thing. Maybe that thinking thing is me. So maybe I can be sure that I exist. Okay, that's going to be like our axiom, our central axiom. And then Descartes says, and this gets a bit dubious, but let's just illustrate what he's thinking. Descartes says, if I have a really clear and distinct idea of something, kind of looks like it's going to be true, and what could be clearer and more distinct than my idea of God? So I can be pretty sure that God exists, and lo and behold, it's a good God, so God isn't going to deceive me when I have a clear and distinct idea of something. Okay, that's pretty dubious reasoning, but the idea, the kind of method that Descartes was following was basically, we have this central axiom, I know I exist, and then we kind of see what we can string out from it. And the idea is, when I have these sense impressions of the world, well, if I have them clearly and distinctly, and because I know God exists, God wouldn't deceive me, I can trust them. So my knowledge of the world comes back. And even when it's coming through the senses, the justification for my knowledge, for my belief, is ultimately backed up by these kind of central axioms, knowledge of my own existence and clear and distinct ideas of God. Okay, those central axioms kind of underpin and justify all of my beliefs formed on the basis of sense experience. Okay, so it's not just sense experience itself that tells me about the world, that it's light outside, it's raining outside or whatever. Really what we need to get all that going are these kind of central axioms, and they are held a priori. It's a priori knowledge that backs up all the knowledge of the world. Really, you don't know anything about the world without those central a priori bits of knowledge. So rationalists aren't saying that all knowledge is a priori, right? You need some sense experience to know whether it's raining or not. But the idea is you wouldn't be able to have that knowledge without those a priori foundations there. So that's kind of one model for understanding what rationalism is, that all knowledge or most of our knowledge is in some sense kind of infused with a priori knowledge. Not all people who describe themselves as rationalists in contemporary philosophy think this. Many would want to reject a load of that stuff and just hold weaker rationalist positions, just saying things like, well, a priori knowledge is possible, right? We do have a priori knowledge, thinking about things like mathematics, but also things like modal knowledge, like when you know not just how things are, but how things could have been. So how do I know that I could have been somewhere else right now, given that I can't experience being somewhere else right now because I am in fact here? Where does that knowledge come from? Rationalists would say that kind of modal knowledge is got a priori, or at least mostly a priori. So in contemporary philosophy, I guess there aren't many rationalists of the Descartes kind who thinks that, at bottom, all of our knowledge is a priori, but there are plenty of kind of little pockets of rationalism around in contemporary philosophy whereby people are saying, well, how could we know that kind of stuff or that kind of stuff without some a priori knowledge in there at some point? So in that kind of slightly weaker than Descartes sense, there are still plenty of rationalists around. Okay guys, so there we have a super short introduction to rationalism. I hope you found it useful. If you did, give the video a thumbs up. You can subscribe, hit that bell icon, and if you're in a position to do so, you can support the channel monetarily on Ko-fi. Thank you so much to everyone who's already done that, who's joined up to subscribe there. That makes me feel, really amazing. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. If you've got any questions about this, leave me a comment down below in the comments. I'm going to try to answer all of them, or at least reply to all of them. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys back here soon.